Hi there, and welcome to the relaunch of our Tuesday Night project. I'd like to welcome everyone to this event, and we'll be starting off hopefully this week with the discussion, does God exist? I just want to give a brief introduction first of all to the Tuesday Night project for the people who are attending the first time, just to let you know what the project is all about. Basically, it was set up by the Islamic Unity Society to be a platform for debate. In life, basically, one of the main ways of actually learning is to question. Once you question, you find out different people's ideas and different people's beliefs and different people's opinions on many different issues. By this, we're able to reflect upon our own personal opinion and hence either develop it or reinforce what we actually believe in. So as such, debate is a very important factor, especially with the society and the community that we live in. One of the wonders which I think we're all privileged here as living in the UK is that we are able to have these kind of debates. Just the idea of having people from different faiths, different points of view, all sitting down in one room and discussing an issue, it in itself is a big thing. So as such, this is one of the aim and objectives. Again, from previously, for people who have attended, the Tuesday Night project, the people on the panel don't necessarily reflect their own personal opinion. They may do, they may not do, and they may be here merely for the presence of arguments. And myself, as chairman of the debate, I'll be keeping again a very neutral point of view. I wouldn't necessarily reflect my own opinion, and I'll be posing questions to both parties, or both people on the panel. The question of belief in God is what I think is fundamental anyway. It forms the basis of existence, it forms the basis of the meaning of life, it forms the basis of many things in terms of what we, in terms of why we're here, and answers many of these questions. And hopefully today both our speakers will present their arguments that they may have. The format of today is each speaker will have a maximum of 15 minutes to start off with to present their arguments, and then there will be a short rebuttal between the two should they want to answer any questions or pose any questions about the other person's arguments, and then we'll open it to the floor, and then if anyone has any questions, then we'll answer them. So I'd like to start off first of all by welcoming our first speaker, which is Sharif Hafezi, is that right? Sorry. He's a pharmacist by profession. He's a Manchester resident, and he's graduated from King's College London. Our second speaker is Afton Cochrane, sorry. I don't know much about your background, so I'll leave you to talk about that. Sorry about that.
I'm just a student here in Manchester.
Student at Manchester University. Okay, who wants to start? I don't mind. You want to start off? Right.
Okay. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Amma ba'd. Assalamu alaikum, and welcome all today. I'm going to go straight into it because obviously there's only a short period of time for me to go and discuss the whole topic of whether a creator exists or not. So I want to try and get into the discussion straight away. First thing that we need to look at is, where do we start with this discussion? Do we start by assuming that a creator exists and assuming some of the characteristics of the creator, and then trying to understand whether the characteristics of the creator can then fit within what we see? And I would say no. We can't assume the creator, and we can't assume the characteristics of the creator and then try and use that to justify what we see or what we don't see. Yeah? And that actually is not something that theists or people who believe in God do, but it's what actually atheists do. They assume certain attributes, and then they say, look, it's incompatible to what we see around us, therefore God does not exist, or God with those attributes doesn't exist. So as a human being, what we're going to do is we're going to start off from what we see around us, and then from that build certain conclusions which I believe will lead to us to understand that a creator exists. So what do? We start by looking around us. And when we look around us, what do we sense? We sense things, we sense people, we sense planets, stars. But fundamentally what we sense, whether very, very big or very, very small, are things which are limited. So they have certain attributes, characteristics. Maybe have a certain size, a certain shape, a certain weight. Also, these things which are limited that we have sensed, they're also dependent upon something else, something other than itself. So it doesn't just exist on its own accord, but rather these limited things that we sense within the universe is dependent upon some other thing. Now, I'm going to show how this will result in a chain of events that can only regress back to the existence of a creator. And I'll give the example with my mobile phone. And if we look at my mobile phone, it's maybe slightly bigger than a normal mobile phone, but it's still limited, still got a certain amount of size, a certain amount of shape. It is also dependent. So, you know, because it's an Apple iPhone, I have to charge it up every couple of hours, because it's dependent upon electricity. So I find that in order for my mobile phone to work, I need to have it charged in. I need to plug it into the electricity. Now if I go back to the electricity, then the electricity that I see is also limited. So there's a certain amount of energy that it produces. It is where you have a region of high electronegativity that goes to a region of low electronegativity through a copper wire. So that's what electricity is. And we also know that electricity itself is dependent upon a process. So we see, and I'm going to go into a bit of science here, but it's not the science that is important. What is important is to understand that things are limited and things are dependent. That's the main thing. But if I was to talk about how electricity is produced, then we know that electricity is produced from power plants. So it's dependent upon a process that takes place in power plants. And what normally happens is you have a copper wire and you have a magnet, and the magnet spins, or the copper wire spins, and it creates an electrical field, and that produces electricity, it shoots out electrons. So you have this. Now in order to get the spinning of the magnet or the copper wire, what do you need? You need turbines. So you see that the actual process is also dependent upon this spinning, upon these turbines that are moving. These turbines that are moving are also dependent. What are they dependent upon? They're dependent upon where power stations work is through steam. So it's actually steam that is produced, that turns the turbines, that rotates the magnet, that produces electricity so that my mobile phone can work. Now where do we get steam from? Steam normally comes from burning fossil fuels, whether that's oil, gas or coal. Yeah. So what they do is they take oil, gas or coal, which is something which is also limited and it's also dependent. So we know that these fossil fuels are dependent upon a process. What is that process? Fossilization. Under heat, under pressure, organic matter congeals, comes together and produces coal or oil or gas. So oil and gas is, you're talking about maybe fish or sea creatures. So you have this process. So if we go back, each point that we've mentioned for my mobile phone to work requires something else. And that thing requires something else. So my mobile phone required electricity, which required a power station, which required the spinning of a magnet, which required the spinning of turbines, which required coal and gas, which required organic matter under a particular pressure and heat over a period of time, which itself requires plant material. And I can keep going back and then say, what does plants depend upon? It depends upon sunlight. What does sunlight depend upon? Depends upon the sun. What does the sun depend upon? It depends upon the fusion of hydrogen. What does the fusion of hydrogen depend on? It depends upon the existence of gas within the universe that comes together under the force of gravity, under the gravitational force. Where does this gas come from? It comes from nebulas. Where do nebulas come from? It comes from supernovas. You see that every single process that we have identified is limited, has a certain amount of it, and is also dependent upon something else. Now I can keep going back, and we can look at the science of this. We can argue, well, where did the nebulas come from? It's supernovas, which are stars that explode. Where do they come from? We can say ultimately from the Big Bang, where the universe was at a single point and exploded out. Where did the Big Bang come from? They say it was dependent upon a quantum singularity. Where did the quantum singularity, where did that come from? It was dependent upon membrane structure. Where was that dependent upon? It's dependent upon superstring. What was that dependent upon? It's dependent upon supercustard. Okay, I'm making it up now.